Hello. Okay, I really want to take you through life lessons, but the 14 lessons that I learned in hospital that could easily be implemented into your life, and I think are really, really good reminders as we take on this journey of inner work, mindset work, and really a lot of these things are nothing you haven't heard before, but I think it's really important for you to implement them like right now. Okay, first I want to say thank you everyone for the amazing support from last week's video. Make sure you follow me on Instagram. I posted a video and I got some amazing comments and messages, but also hit subscribe because then you'll get more videos. Of course, I'm aiming for this one to be a lot shorter than last week's. Of course, there was a lot in it and it was very heavy, very story based, but this is 14 lessons that I learned whilst in hospital. I did a blog and a podcast on this, but I think it's really important to take you through those in more of a life sense because I use them for business, because I think they're going to be super helpful, something that are really good reminders. And I think some things like I didn't even really implement even though I knew them. So I would love to take you through 14 of them and, you know, see if any of them resonate with you. Okay, lesson number 1. The people around you mean everything. And whether was my family sitting next to my hospital bed, friends that flew up to come and see me and support me, or the amazing messages that I received on Instagram during my journey, this is really the same in your life, right? It doesn't matter how well you know them or who they are, what their journey is. They're around you to support you. They're going to be your biggest cheerleaders and help you along your journey no matter what that is. So this is why it's really intentional to look at the people around you and look at how they can help and support you, or potentially not doing an audit because that sounds awful, but looking who's in your current network and are they supporting you or not, or are they here to help you along in your journey. Of course, we don't want to be super selfish and just have them in our lives for our own benefit, but it is really about seeing the people around you and they mean everything. Of course, like connection is huge to us, right? So it's all about looking at those connections and never forgetting that you can't do it alone. You can't do everything alone. So using the people around you will be the most amazing support for you. Lesson number 2 is you have to have a level of surrender and know that there's some things that aren't in your control. Like for me, obviously in hospital, it was surrendering to the fact that I didn't know when I was getting out of hospital. There were times when I was waiting to know if I was to get chemo or not, and I didn't know, and I couldn't do anything to rush that process. I just had to sit with it and surrender that it wasn't in my control and that I would leave hospital when I was ready. And some days this was really hard, and some days this is going to be really hard for you. What is something right now that you know you can't control, but it's just like driving you crazy? So, you know, we always need this as a reminder all of the time. So just have a think about right now, what are you like stressing about and what can't you control in that situation, and learning to just let go and just say, I can't change it. Number 3 is accepting help. Now, sometimes this can be really hard, especially with our egos. If you haven't read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, definitely recommend it, but it's always accepting help when you need it. For me, it was multiple things. Obviously, whilst I'm in the hospital, people showing up for me, people asking like, what can I do to help you right now? When I got out of hospital, with my business, asking people for help because I did lose some clients. I did need help just like getting things back on track. I have a team, I needed their help. So definitely accepting help is really, really important, and don't feel bad about that because people are telling you they're willing to help, or you're asking for help, they wouldn't say yes if they didn't want to. So always accept help and don't feel bad about it. Number 4 is trusting your team. Now this is probably a little bit more for business, but For me, trust is everything, and I had to put trust in a lot of people whilst in hospital. Surgeons who were cutting me open, the ICU team that handled me, the nursing staff, everything. Like, I had to trust the people around me whilst I was in hospital, trusting the team that I had working on client work whilst I was away. But having to think about even just trusting, whether it's work people in your team, trusting friends, trusting family, like trust is so big. And I didn't realize, like, for me, sometimes it can be quite hard to trust people around you, especially when it's with something to do with your life. But when you show trust to people, you also empower them as well. And I think this is really important. And for me, if I didn't trust the people around me, well, yeah, I honestly wouldn't have been able to get through it, no way. Lesson number 5 is knowing when you have to step in. This one is really important, especially when it comes to your own health and knowing and trusting your own body. There was times when I was in hospital and I had like a nose tube in, and I just, if anyone's been in hospital has had the nose tube in, it's just like the most awful thing ever. And I said to the doctors, like, I just need this nose tube taken out. Like, I know that is just going to improve me dramatically, because then I would have been able to consume a bit more, like liquids, isopoles. Isopoles are like really the best thing for me right now. They help me when I'm nauseous. They help me. I know it's a mindset thing, but anyway, I just knew that it would help me. And there are times when, especially with your health, that there are going to be medical practitioners that tell you what's good for your body, what's not. But there are times when you need to question things, step in. And this comes down to anything, like in your own work, in your own life, with your friends, your family. Like, know when it's time for you to step in and ask questions. I know for me, I am a questioner, that's my personality type. But there are times where you feel quite powerless because someone maybe in a higher position than you is telling you what's going on, and there are times when you have to trust, and there's going to be times when you have to trust yourself and know when you have to step in, especially with your health. And this leads to point 6, which is just trusting your gut. So knowing when it's time to step in. And this can actually be quite hard. I think there were times for me when I was like, this doesn't seem right. I had this like lump here on my stomach, and I knew there was something going on. And I remember saying to mum and dad, like, do you think it's potentially just fluid buildup? Do you think it's potentially like swelling, or what is it? And I had this really bad back pain as well. And I was like, what is going on? So I said, you know, there's something not right. And there was fluid right there, sitting right there. And that was what I was in there for longer because I had to get a drainage tube put in and had to wait for it all to drain out, and it just took forever. But that was when I just trusted my gut and knew there was something right. And of course, through this whole health journey, I've trusted my gut because I knew as soon as my gallbladder pain didn't go away that there was something wrong. Trust your gut with everything, like relationships, business, work, life. Like, learning to tune in and trusting your gut is super important. How you do that, there is just really how I learned to trust my own gut was like writing things down a lot, and like when things came out of my head onto the paper, like knowing that was, you know, something, there was more to that, and telling myself something. You'll know your gut feel, you'll know it. Number 7 and number 8 are very similar. So the first one is don't sweat the small stuff. And this was really important in my recovery process, and this is really important for health in general, regardless of whether you have a health issue or not. Stress always has a negative impact on your life. I know for me, I sweated the small stuff a lot. I would always worry when I was younger, and I don't know if anyone can relate, you know, when friends don't message you back, or when, you know, for example, someone might word something to you that you take something in the wrong way through, and of course things like social media and text messages and things like that is, some people, like, it can have more of an impact on others. And for me, I always used to sweat the small stuff, the tiniest little things. And this goes back to the things that you can't control, and we're surrendering to that. So don't sweat the small stuff. And when you notice it, pick yourself up on it and say, is this really something I should be stressing about? And number 8 is remember that setbacks are all part of the journey. Whether it's a setback in whatever area of your life, there's always a lesson you can take from it. Now, you don't have to have the silver lining straight away or the hindsight straight away. That's not always going to come when you need it, and you don't have to have it. I remember there was a time when I was in hospital and I was just like, I don't see the point of this right now. Like, I don't see the lesson or the reason why this has happened to me. And I remember someone messaged me and said on Instagram, like, you don't have to know right now. You might never know. And of course, like, it came eventually in sharing my journey, but there's going to be times where the lesson won't come straight away, but remembering that there's setbacks always part of the journey, and they'll teach you something eventually, but you don't need to know it right now. So a bad day or week doesn't mean a bad life. So I had so many bad days in hospital. There was days I couldn't stop crying. There were days where like I just felt like I was never gonna leave, and they were really hard days, like days where, you know, my parents would say like, it's gonna be okay, like you're gonna get out of here, and there were just like those days where I was like, I didn't see that right now, like I just can't stop crying, I can't see that there's an end to this. But at the end of the day, there was always a reminder that it's just a bad day, not a bad life, and you have control of that. You have the power of telling yourself that. People can remind you, but you're not going to listen to it until you're ready, right? And then number 10, it will pass. And Prince EA has an amazing YouTube video on this called It Will Pass. I'll link it. And when I was sick and helpless in hospital, I reminded myself every day was one step closer. I remember getting out of the shower when I was staying in an Airbnb with mum and dad, and I'm like, I just stand up a little bit straighter. If I just get through the shower, if I just eat my breakfast, tomorrow will be better. And of course there's setbacks, there were some days that didn't happen, but just everything will pass. Good things will pass, bad things will pass, right? So you have a good day, you have a bad day. That is just the roller coaster of life. But everything will pass. You just have to keep reminding yourself of that. Number 11, sometimes all you need is a good sleep. And this before hospital was always a really good reminder. Like, you know, you feel stressed at work, there's something you just can't get out of your brain. Sometimes just a nap or a good sleep allows your body to rest. And of course, for me, when I was in hospital, like, a good sleep really did change the game for me. And sometimes that was really hard. You know, sleep in hospital can be quite tough, but I also saw these like amazing sunrises after a good sleep. And I remember this one sleep I had, and like I slept the whole night, I didn't even wake up, and I was just like woke up like, oh my god, that's what I needed. And then that week was so much easier for me. But your body will thank you if you give it a good night's sleep. And the whole sleep when we're dead thing, no, you need to cut that out. Number 12 is eat. We all get busy, and sometimes, you know, if we're working really hard or whatever that might look like, we might skip meals, like, I don't know, accidentally or whatever that looks like. But for me, when I was in hospital, food was so important. If I could eat like even a little bit of that meal that I had, and it's still like that, if I finish a whole meal, I'm like, it's like the biggest win ever. Eat good food, nourish your body. It will help you in the long run with energy. You know, think of the days where you have like we go out for lunch and you have like a really big lunch or a fatty lunch, and you just feel like really sick all that day. It's like because you haven't given your body the right amount of food or the nourishment. And like this used to happen to me all the time. Sorry to point my dad out, but he will have a cup of tea and, you know, maybe a hot cross bun or like a dessert in the night. Not often, but sometimes. Could be over the weekend when he's had some alcohol, and he'll always get indigestion, right? And I said to him, like, why don't you just cut that out? He's like, because I like it. But sometimes when we're eating food, it's not just a matter of eating, it's thinking about what we eat, being mindful about what we eat. And if something upsets us, cut it out. I never used to do that. There were foods that upset me all the time, but I still ate them. But knowing that that food now makes me sick, makes me think twice about eating it. Most of the time it's junk food. And if I do eat it, I'm not going to sustain myself and never eat it again, but I just know what I'm in for, right? So think about the food you eat and make sure you eat throughout the day. Number 13 is money isn't the most important thing in life. And this can be hard to think about because it lets us do the things we like, lets us live the life we want to. But I know when I started my business and when I quit my full-time job, that I started it based off passion, right? So I try to remind myself of that regularly. When I was in hospital, obviously, I wasn't really earning that much money. And it sort of made me realize that, unless I have my health, I can't earn any money, right? It's a huge reminder. And I'll never take that for granted. But money will always buy us things that we want, and it can help us create a sense of freedom, but there's a lot more from that, within that, but it just gives you perspective, right? For me, it was like, okay, I can't earn money while I'm in hospital. I don't know what that looks like when I get out, and that's can be really scary, right? But it's going to hinder my health and my recovery, so it's not the most important thing in life. Yes, it helps us, but if you can get on top of the mindset around your money story, why you think certain ways about money and how you can improve it, it'll really help you feel a lot more freer because you don't need money. Money just helps you. And number 14 was do the mindset work. There were days where I didn't want to journal or meditate, or I just thought it was just crap. But I know from when I started my journey in 2017 that I would have been a mess in hospital if I hadn't have done some mindset work in that time. It just really prepared me. Obviously I was a mess in hospital, but I just don't think I would have gotten through it as well as I did if I hadn't have done any work at all. And this also will help me with other things in my life, right? When I lost clients, when I got out of hospital, or when things come along, when you get hurt, when you're in fear of things. That's why doing the mindset work is really important, and it can look so different for anyone. It could just be writing down thoughts when you feel a bit crap. It could be meditating. It does really work, and it did really help me in hospital. And then the days that I didn't do the mindset work were my worst days. But it was okay because there were days when I didn't want to do it. But then when I did journal at the end of the day or do a meditation, I always feel a lot clearer and a lot better. So 14, do the mindset work. So they're the 14 things that I learned whilst in hospital. There are just so many other lessons that I want to share with you. So many things that I really just would put into perspective for me. And that's sort of why I'm doing this, because I got this level of perspective that I don't think I would have gotten if I didn't have this journey. And some people don't get for a long time. So I want to share those with you. I'm doing things on TikTok. You can follow me on Instagram, but drop a comment below if any of these you're going to start doing or start thinking about a little bit more. Remind yourself of daily, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.